Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Today's episode is based on a framework from Jim Rohn. And I think that this framework is pretty underapplied, and it's extraordinarily important. Jim Rohn talked about the four people that you must forgive if you want to move forward in life and in business. Now, this forgiveness was not for emotional reasons or for spiritual reasons. It was simply because, or his belief is simply because, unresolved resentment can really distort the way in which you operate. It can really distort your decision making. So it's not really about being nice. It's about removing friction that stands in the way of execution, that clouds judgment, that quietly puts a limit or a cap on your performance. I want to go through Jim Rohn's four categories. And I want to show how each one of these shows up tactically in real life and in business. Now, the first group or the first individual you have to forgive, according to Jim Rohn, you got to forgive your parents. He was really clear on this one. Your parents gave you all sorts of beliefs about money, beliefs about work, about success, about failure, about risk. Most of those beliefs were unconscious. They were not given to you intentionally. Here's the tactical issue. If you have not forgiven your parents, then you're often still reacting to them instead of deciding for yourself. So how does that show up? Well, it shows up as overworking to prove your worth. Maybe playing small to avoid criticism. Maybe it's hesitation around investment or money or leadership. Maybe it's seeking or needing external validation before taking action. This forgiveness is not about saying they were right. It's about decoupling your decisions from their limitations. So a question I would ask myself, if my parents were not part of my internal decision committee anymore, let's call it, what choices would I make differently? If my parents were not part of my internal decision-making committee anymore, what choices would I make differently? Based on that answer, I think that's where you'll find that forgiveness hasn't happened yet. Now, if number one was forgive your parents, number two is forgive others, according to Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn lumped this together intentionally. Former partners, former bosses, friends, people who wronged you. He just called it forgive others. Here's the practical problem with not forgiving others. You start making decisions in opposition to the past, not in service of the future. What do I mean? Well, this shows up in business as maybe avoiding partnerships when leverage in your world would help a ton. Maybe it shows up in business in over controlling because trust was once broken. Maybe it's carrying a defensive posture in the negotiations. This is you making decisions in opposition to the past, not in service of the future. Unforgiven resentment like this, it becomes an invisible risk premium that's added to every decision you're considering. You think you're actually being cautious, but you're more likely being constrained. So a question I'd ask myself, where am I overcorrecting because of one past failure or betrayal? That's the unresolved forgiveness that's affecting current strategy. Number three, in terms of forgiveness, the groups or individuals to forgive, Jim Rohn says, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. This is one that Jim Rohn emphasized the most. If you don't forgive yourself, then you subconsciously avoid bold moves, you reduce your upside, you limit your potential, you protect your ego instead of pursuing progress. People say, I learned from it, but behavior actually tells the truth. People will say, I learned from it, but behavior tells the truth. If you learned, your future decisions would be cleaner, not smaller. So unforgiven self-judgment shows up as analysis paralysis. Maybe underbetting when your conviction is high. Maybe it's reluctance to commit, especially committing publicly. Maybe it's constantly needing more information before you take action. People will put that out there as wisdom. It's not wisdom. That's more self-punishment that's disguised. So the question I'd ask, what decision am I hesitating on because I don't trust myself anymore? What decision am I hesitating on because I don't trust myself anymore? See, that's not usually a knowledge problem. It's more of a forgiveness problem. The last group, in terms of forgiveness, or I should say the forgiveness framework, remember, we had forgive your parents, forgive yourself, forgive others. And there is a fourth in the framework that Jim Rohn describes. That fourth is actually apologize to others. This is a little different than forgive others. This is apologize to others. This is the part most people skip. Some relationships actually don't need forgiveness. What they need is ownership. Unspoken apologies create these unresolved loops, this emotional noise, this unnecessary tension, these avoided conversations. You don't apologize to fix the past. You apologize to free yourself, to free attention. I think that leaders that have unresolved apologies, what they end up doing is avoiding certain rooms. They end up delaying certain conversations. They carry this unnecessary emotional weight. And all of this costs us in some way. And at the very least, it costs us in execution speed. So a question I'd ask myself, who am I avoiding because I owe clarity or ownership? Who am I avoiding because I owe clarity or ownership? See, that avoidance is not just draining energy. It is just limiting your future. It's limiting your potential. So to wrap up today, how do we actually use this framework? I don't think it's a journaling exercise. I don't think it's a abstract reflection. I think you make 4 columns. Column 1, parents. Column 2, others. Column 3, yourself. And column 4, apologies owed. And then under each column, write the specific names or situations, and then ask one question per column. How is this influencing the way I decide today? It's not how you feel, it's how you decide. How is this influencing the way I decide today, the way I make decisions today? Pick one item this week to address. Maybe it's a conversation or reframing, whatever it may be. Jim Rohn did not teach forgiveness as a virtue. He taught it actually as a performance unlock. And I think that that's the kicker here today. It's not forgiveness as a virtue. It's a performance unlock. Because this sort of clarity compounds. And this sort of release allows for greater attention in areas that matter most. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.